House is calling for an investigation into former President Obama. This follows President Trump's tweets claiming that former President Barack Obama ordered the wiretapping of telephones at Trump Tower during the election. President Trump has not presented any evidence, and Obama's spokesman says, quote, neither President Obama nor any White House official ever ordered surveillance on any U.S. citizen. Any suggestion otherwise is simply false. Washington Post reporter Ed O'Keefe joins me now from Washington. So, Ed, what did you make of President Trump's claims?
Well, they're pretty explosive, but as of yet, there's no evidence that they actually are true. And we've seen several former government officials who would have been aware of this kind of activity speaking out this morning saying that they've seen no evidence of it. The White House, spokesperson for former President Obama saying that there was a policy such that this type of thing would not have been allowed when he was president. So if the current president has evidence, certainly there are folks out there who want to see it. I thought it was most striking to see the Maine Senator, Susan Collins, a Republican, basically say to the president, shut up, sit down, and show us the evidence and get out of the way and allow the intelligence committees to do their investigation. Absent that, we'll see. Also notable this morning, Elaine, that the White House is now saying that these investigations should also look into the president's unsubstantiated claims that the Obama administration was tapping into Trump Tower or to his campaign. Again, whether they do that or not, we'll see. But that seems to be laying down a marker that says unless you do that, the president isn't going to take that investigation seriously.
Well, Ed, do we have any idea what may have prompted the president to make these allegations? Any kind of clues at all?
Well, we know from reports that he apparently had a very bad Friday reacting to the Attorney General's decision to recuse himself from any investigations ongoing or in the future about Russia's alleged involvement in the 2016 elections. And, he had said, and his press secretary had said, that they didn't think that the Attorney General had to do that. The Attorney General then went out on advice of ethics officials at the Justice Department, and I think his own political instincts, and decided to recuse himself, knowing that if he didn't, it was going to poison those ongoing probes or any that may come in the future. And we also know from the reporting of my colleagues at the Post that there were various reports by Breitbart and other conservative outlets circulating among White House officials that raised, again, these unsubstantiated claims that the Obama administration had been tapping into Trump Tower or, keeping an eye on the Trump campaign over the course of the election. And that seems to what prompted him. We also know, frankly, Elaine, that it's usually on Saturdays that he does this. He's either at Mar-a-Lago or he's up in the White House by himself, not surrounded by aides as much, and he pops off a few of these tweets. Notable that amid all the conversation about, allegations that the Obama administration was looking into his past, he also mentioned that, it's a darn shame that Arnold Schwarzenegger is stepping away from The Apprentice. So perhaps that shows us how seriously he takes all of this, but he felt the need to get it out there.
Well, so if the notion is to take attention away from the ongoing investigation into Russia, do you think that, in fact, this changes the narrative, or does it sort of just build upon it instead? I think
it builds upon it, and it reinforces why so many people in both parties want to get to the bottom of this and want to see the White House be more cooperative. But what he was trying to do there is move the goalposts a little bit by saying this morning through his press secretary that any of these investigations now also have to look at the Obama administration's behavior. I'm sure the intelligence committees will be happy to tack that on to a long list of things they're looking into. But I think what that statement is saying more than anything is unless they do that, they won't consider that investigation a serious one.
You mentioned earlier, Ed, that Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, recused himself, and the president's reaction to that was not a positive one. It's something that he reportedly opposed. But where do things go now from here, amid calls from from Democrats, rather, that there should be a special prosecutor?
Yeah, I think the next flashpoint will come on Tuesday when the man who's nominated to be Sessions' deputy at the Justice Department, a career federal prosecutor, is called before the Senate Judiciary Committee, the same one that Sessions used to be a member of and testified before back in January for his confirmation hearing. The Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer saying today that they're going to basically put it to this guy and ask him to say whether or not he would appoint an independent prosecutor to look into all of this. The answer Democrats want to hear is yes. What they're likely likely to hear is something short of that, simply because nominees don't usually answer declaratively questions put to them in these hearings. And so that might be the excuse for Democrats to vote against him. But that, I believe, will be the next flashpoint. They don't see this going away. Certainly there are congressional Republicans saying, look, Sessions has taken himself out of this. It will run its course. We're confident that there won't be any political interference. But the more that the president brings it up himself or does or says things in this regard, I think the more that the stakes for all of these investigations continue. And Democrats believe it's one they should continue talking about because the president himself keeps talking about it.
Finally, Ed, on another issue, one that really matters a lot, particularly to the members of President Trump's base who recounted as really their number one issue, and that is Obamacare. They would like to see it repealed and replaced, but there's been this rift that we saw over it. We saw Kentucky Senator Rand Paul denied access to a draft of the House GOP plan to repeal and replace it. But where do things stand now? Is there any kind of consensus that you're hearing about among Republicans?
I think a majority of Republicans in the House and the Senate right now would vote for any serious proposal that would essentially be seen as undoing most, if not all, of Obamacare. But given that there isn't one blueprint just yet, and given that Republican leaders are nervous about putting it out there because they know it will get picked apart not only by Democrats but members of their own base, it's going to be very difficult for them to really come to an agreement. And I think this will be a real test of the president's ability to be a party leader and a legislator. Will we see a little LBJ from Donald Trump? Will he twist arms with members of his own party, bring them to the White House, or call them out on Twitter and say, you need to stand with me and the Republican Party to do our number one campaign promise, which is to undo Obamacare? I think right now there's roughly 40 members of the House Republican Conference who say that they've got concerns with it. Mathematically, that's enough to defeat it, but that number will likely dwindle once the political pressure is applied and once the details are known, or once they take the temperature of their constituents back home, who for the most part would probably say, you know what, this does most of what we'd like, we realize you can't do it all, go ahead and vote for this. We'll see. But this is going to be a months-long process. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be a little ugly, and it's going to be very partisan. That much we know.
Enormous political stakes for the president
Absolutely.
And his party. All right, Ed O'Keefe in Washington for us. Ed, great to see you. Thanks so much.
Take care, Elaine.